So today's agenda is we're releasing our new 2019.0 version. As many of you might have already downloaded it and looked at it. So let's get started to see what's coming new in that release. First of all, we have numerical methods and high-performance computing. New features for solve equals to auto are added in 2019.0. New FASTFR with SMP-parallelization is added, as well as improved parallel performance for acoustic coupling matrix reduction using ATMS is updated. In regards to dynamic analysis, we have added rotational force and gravity load enhancements. Nonlinear harmonic analysis, so 128 enhancements have also been added, which we will talk about in this session. Next, moving on to solution 400, which is advanced implicit nonlinear analysis. We've added contact model check for segment-to-segment method, as well as output for advanced composites in Nastran traditional format of layer composite, and monitor points for solution 400 using NLStat and NLStrand. For meshing, we've added 5 or 13 noded transition elements for better transitioning of different solid elements. This element is called pyramid element. And we also have added module instantiation and so-called 700 enhancements. And the last but not the least, we've added the HDFS enhancements. So let's get started. I'll pass the presentation to Raj, and he will present the upcoming enhancements.
Okay, thank you, Bhumi, for the introduction. I also want to thank everyone who helped us with the beta testing for 2019.0. We really appreciate it. Your continued support allows us to make sure the quality of MSC Nastran stays market leading. So we'll get started with the HDFS enhancements that we made in this release. We're heavily focused on supporting automotive NVH workflows, and one of the main drivers for automotive NVH improvements for us is to continue to improve our ACMS, the automated component mode synthesis module. Current trends, as you may have noticed in the automotive industry, are moving more towards electric vehicles. And that drives requirements to make sure our vibroacoustic capabilities are supporting that effort. So we're improving our ACMS to support higher frequencies, and in order to do that, we've started making some effort towards that direction. So first of all, we're going to look at some of the performance improvements in our parallel performance for ACMS. We've also improved our performance for random module. So I'll show you an example of what that performance improvement looks like. Next, we've also implemented DNT parallelization for our PF calc. So here's a quick example model that it's one of the customer models, 10.4 million degrees of freedom, relatively larger models with about 600,000 3D elements and 2,300 structural modes and 640 fluid modes. In this case, we can see from the 2018.2, which is our previous release version, from that version to the current 2019.0 version, we see about 2.5 times performance improvement. And in each module, we made significant improvements. So the PF calc performance improvement is about 3.5x. For the random module, in this model, we see up to 12x improvement. For acoustic coupling matrix module as well, we see about 57% reduction, where we have the fluid and the structural coupling matrix. For ACMS, we've been making continued enhancements for the last few years. As you may have noticed, in about 2 or 3 releases ago, we completely rewrote our ACMS to what we call the new accelerated ACMS. We're continuing to make those improvements. In the previous version, our default for parallel scheduling was static, which we've changed that default to dynamic scheduling. The default behavior now offers much better performance compared to the static parallel scheduling, in which it now can be more smart about how it chooses which parallel threads to solve first. In some cases, we do notice the memory requirement is slightly higher, but we believe the performance improvement makes up for the higher memory requirement in a significant way. To schedule, to select the parallel scheduling, we use the get keyword of the domain solver executive system command as shown on the slide. Also in 2018.0 Nastran version, we introduced what we call automatic solver, in which case we just select solve equal to auto, and instead of selecting SMP and DAP settings and playing with SMP DAP settings. What we've done is we've taken all the models that we have, all the customer models, all the in-house models that we've built, and we understand for each model what the optimal DMP and SMP settings are. In the previous versions, we introduced automatic solver for Solution 100 series. In this new release version, we've also added that for Solution 200, which is our optimization solver. Again, we've been testing this for a long time, and now we believe we've come to a place where we can make this generally available. In Solution 200, we've tested two custom models that were shown in the bottom. And you can notice in 2019.0, the automated solver selects much better DMP and SMP settings by default, and we see a significant up to 2x improvement by just selecting solve equal to auto. We're also making improvements to our Solve 111. So we previously did have auto solver for Solve 111. However, in this release, what we've done is we've made our training set even better. So we've continued to add models to our training set, and now our solve equal to auto is getting smarter and smarter. Because of that, as you'll notice in 2018.2 for the same model, if we use automatic solver, it selected DMP of 4 and SMP of 4. And the total solution time was 2100 seconds. In 2019.0, it's gotten a little bit more smarter, and it's an SMP of 5 in this case, and we see some performance improvement there as well. So we're slowly not only improving our parallel methods, but we're also improving a training set for solve equal to auto. One of the major improvements that we made for 2019.0 was we completely rewrote our FASTFR module. Again, this is one of the important modules for NVH type of workflows. After ACMS, we do a fast frequency response. Previously, this module could only use DMP parallel kernels, but now we've rewritten it to allow using SMP parallel kernels, where we believe the shared memory allows the performance to be a lot better for Solution 111 models. For some of the models, we can see that the performance improvement is in the FASTFR module itself is up to 10x, as noted in the model A on the left-hand side. For overall simulation time, we noticed somewhere around 35 to 40% improvement. And these models are custom models, significant. They have in the model A has not only structure but also fluid cavity, and it's a 10 million degree of freedom model. Moving forward in future releases, we'll tackle even bigger problems and even higher frequencies. So some more to come on this in future releases, but we're really excited about this release. Now I'll hand it over to Bhumi to talk about the dynamic analysis enhancements.
Okay, so we'll talk about the dynamic analysis enhancements next. We added the new parameters to apply gravity loading to adjust a portion of the structure or to apply the rotational force loading, R force, to a portion of the structure. These parameters are param grav set N and param R force set N, where N is a set 1 ID. So a real-world example for this would be, in this case, a rotating structure is mounted on a support structure, and you would need to apply the R force only to the rotating grid or the rotor grid, and this could be done now with the param R force set N. And similarly, if you want to apply the partial gravity to the model, then you could do that as well. Next are our nonlinear harmonic analysis cell 128 enhancements. As many of you already know that cell 128 allows the inclusion of discrete nonlinearities to be added to a harmonic response analysis. And as long as the nonlinearities remain relatively light, several types of problems may be solved without needing to resort a full-blown nonlinear transient analysis solution. So in Nastran 2019.0, we have added a lot of new enhancements in regards to cell 128. As listed here, first one is the consolidation of different parameters into single bulk data entry for the ease of use. Second is resetting initial conditions for run without with non-converged frequency. NO load output is the third one. Fourth one is output nonlinear loads and displacement for harmonics greater than 0, not just the harmonics 0. And the last but not the least is the implementation of continuation procedure. So I'll talk more about these in the next slide. So first one, as I said, consolidation of all the nonlinear harmonic response analysis parameters. This new bulk data entry is added, NHR-PRM. You can reference this in the quick reference guide for Nastran, and this is to specify all the parameters in one place. Next one is resetting the initial conditions after non-conversion. So non-convergence can occur when the problem has simply become too nonlinear to be handled by assumptions of harmonic balance method programmed in solution 128. But it is often the case that the region of instability only persists for small frequency interval. The current capability uses the solution at the previously converged frequency as initial conditions for the problem at the current excitation frequency. If the solution at current frequency does not converge, the response at this frequency is set to 0, and the code moves to the next frequency to be analyzed, retaining the solution at previously converged frequency as the initial condition. This may or may not allow the subsequent frequencies to be found, and if no solution is found at the next frequency, then the logic repeats itself until the excitation frequencies, all the excitation frequencies have been tried. So with Nastran 2019, we have added this new capability where you will be able to force the initial conditions for a particular excitation frequency to 0 after a certain number of non-converged frequencies. So new parameters have been added, and there are two options. First option is to define maximum number of non-converged sequential frequencies using NHR-PRM entry and specify MNCSS. So as you can see, maximum number of non-converged sequential frequencies. So MNCSS is set to N, and then the default value for that is 1000. And the second option is maximum frequency interval between the current excitation frequency and the previously converged solution. And the default for this is equal to 0.5 hertz. The third enhancement is the nonlinear load output. As you can see, the new NO load entry is there, and you can request it for sort 2 phase, and then you will get the output in the FO6 file like this. The fourth one is the output for multiple harmonics. So you can now output the harmonics for not just the harmonic 0, but for multiple harmonics. And the output could be requested for in OP2 and HDFS file as well, along with the FO6 file. Next enhancement is the continuation procedure. For certain nonlinear problems, use of continuation procedure can result in more robust analysis and can capture nonlinear response accurately, which cannot be done with conventional analysis. In continuation procedure, excitation frequency is treated as a dependent variable along with the rest of the harmonic state variables. This is why the problem size is increased by 1, and an additional equation is required to solve the equation. This is currently available only for the frequency-independent analysis, and in the next releases, we'll add the frequency-dependent analysis as well. Now we will talk about the enhancements in implicit nonlinear analysis solution 400. First one is the contact model check. Contact model check was introduced in Nastran 2018.2 release, and we have added a couple of other enhancements to this release for contact model check. The first one includes the contact distance check for segment-to-segment method. The second one is the geometry adjustment of initial stress-free contact. And third one is the automatic step glue. Next is the segment angle on BC-para entry and NLPRM, NLDBG, and 3D sum to summarize the contact status information for contact debug in FASTFR. I'll talk more about it in the next slide. So let's talk about the contact distance check. So when using segment-to-segment method for contact analysis, it is necessary to help the users to review the check if contact model setup is done correctly or not. Because in numerical analysis, complicated structure with many parts, it's the complicated structure with many parts, and the context sometimes is unavoidable. So it becomes very challenging and tough for users to determine and review if the contact status in the initial state is reasonable, even with the help of GUI. So in this phase of contact model check, we have supported segment-to-segment method as well, and it is supported for all all contact types for cell 400 and cell 101, and permanent glue contact for other solution types, such as 103, 105, 119, and 200. Next is the contact distance check. So in this case, you have the contact distance check for, if you say stop in this case, then it will show you the contact distance check when the analysis is stopped. If you say run, then it will show you the check when the analysis is running. And if you specify step, then it will show you at the time step 0 or whatever time step is specified in the next is the initial stress-free for segment-to-segment contact. So as you can see here that with the contact check vector without the initial stress-free, you have it just shows you the vectors of how much penetration has happened. But in the initial stress-free in 2019, you can see is that the geometry adjustment is done and the gap is cleared, and it also shows you how much penetration it has done. And as you can see, the numbers match in the image on the left and the right. Next is the automatic step glue contact. So if you reset the I glue to negative automatically, it's to activate the step glue contact when the permanent glue contact with large displacement effect is present. So there is a Nastran system cell 758, and then you can set different values for it in order to specify the step glue contact. Next is the segment angle on BC-para entry. So in the previous releases, we were supporting the contact analysis. In contact, we were using 120 degrees as minimum angle, but in 2019.0, now you can specify the segment angle to 90, in the range of 90 to 180 degrees. Now, this will allow for the surfaces that are parallel to each other, as well as that are at 90 degrees with each other. And again, this is supported with all contact types, including permanent glue contact, trivial glue contact, as well as touching contact. Next is the N3D sum. So before we used to have the N3DDB, which would give too much information. So this was a customer request, which so now this new parameter N3D sum will provide the brief summary of contact status for contact debug in the FO6 file. Let's move on to the advanced composite output enhancement. So in Nastran 2018.0 and the previous releases, we used to have the composite output in two formats, where we used to have the traditional composite output and then the interlaminar stresses for the advanced composite. But that wouldn't give the output in Patron or in the GUI format. So with this new parameter, MDL param comp N1 set to yes, we are now able to provide the output in consolidated format, so you can view it in Patron as well. So let me show you how the output looks. In the old format, we used to have stresses and strain for layered composite, and then the interlaminar stresses for layered composite elements. With the new format, now you could have everything under one label. So it's easy to view, and also the results are easy to visualize in Patron. So as you can see here, that before we used to have the different like phi output for advanced elements C quad 4 and C hexa here, and then the phi stresses for conventional elements C quad 4. And now we have we can plot the phi stresses for all element types in new format as shown here. Next, we have the monitor point support with solution 400. So as many of you know, that monitor points was supported with solution sequences other than Sol 400 until now. But with Nastran 2019.0, we're now supporting monitor points with solution 400, and all the monitor point entries are supported in 1.1, 3, some 1, and some total. And then the input for that is exactly like how it's done with other solution types. You need to have the monitor case control command entry, and then define the monitor points in the bulk data entry. And then the output for nonlinear static is done, if you want the nonlinear static output, then sort one format as each load step is required. And if you want the nonlinear transient analysis output, then sort two format at each time step is requested. Now, the only thing is that with solution 400, we are supporting it with NLStat and NLTran only currently. We will extend the capability in upcoming years. So here is an example. Monitor all is requested in the case control command, and then 1.3 is in the bulk data entry. This is the new entry here, SMADC, and if you have specified this, then it will give you the output for excluding contact, and if you have not specified it in the bulk data entry, then it will show you the output for everything, including contact. So let's move on. And here's the output for in the FO6 file for 1.3 in solution 400. And as you know, the GP4 output is very important when we are doing solution 400. So you can also get the 3.4 file output now. I will pass the presentation to Raj again to present the pyramid elements.
Okay, thank you, Rumi. So also in 2019.0, we've added the capability to use pyramid elements inside of Nastran. Pyramid elements are now supported in all MSC Nastran solutions where regular solid elements are supported. So it extends our solid element topology from tetra and hexas and pentas to now the pyramid elements as well. The benefits of having pyramid elements is it enhances to using an automated measure. It will create pyramid elements as a transition between the hexa elements and the tetra elements, which hexas are normally the core of the geometry and tetras are the boundary. So now when you're transitioning from one to the other, one is four-sided and the other one is one-sided. So you can use the pyramid elements now, which is supported in all of Nastran solutions. So here's a little bit of description about how we're supporting it. As I mentioned earlier, supporting all linear and nonlinear solution sequences, where we also support standard solid elements. So they're all listed on the slide. For all the analysis types that are primarily used inside MSC Nastran, and they're all listed on here as well. All types of loading are also supported, like structural, distributed gravity, pressure, or thermal loads. Finally, we've also added the result output types to our OP2 standard format, universal format, and the new HDFS format as well. What does the user interface look like? Very similar to how our other solid elements are used. C param is the entry, and then For 5-noded element, G1 to G5 must be specified, and for 13-noded, similarly, we must specify all 13 grid points. Element coordinate system is under basic coordinate system, similar to other element types. So we've ran some examples. We've taken some examples from our documentation guide, from our demonstration guide, sorry. And in this case, the chapter 50 for solution 400, we picked a highly nonlinear example where we have 2 plates pressing on a rubber seal using segment-to-segment contact with friction. In this case, this is an older example that we had in our demonstration guide. Previously, it didn't contain any pyramid elements. For the new example, we added pyramid elements, and they're shown in the pink on the right-hand side. And when we compare the results.
I'm sorry, one second. Actually, the audio is very poor, so just hold on one second. I'm gonna just. Okay, hopefully the audio has gotten better now. If somebody could just send us in a chat or Q&A panel that your audio is better or not, then that would be good. I'm getting a few complaints about the audio. Okay, great. Sounds good. So continue, Raj.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'll go back to the beginning of this slide right here. So again, what I was talking about was we've added pyramid elements in MSC Nastran now, and they're supported in all linear and nonlinear solution sequences. They're all listed on the slide, and all the physics that we support with the standard solid elements are also supported by the new pyramid element. Also, all types of loading, like structural, distributed gravity, pressure, or thermal loads, they're all supported on this element. Finally, the output types that we support for pyramid element results are universal OP2 format and the HDFS format. The user interface is very similar to how we have other solid elements defined. Here we use a C/M entry, and if you have a 5-noded pyramid, then you must specify the G1 to G5 ID numbers for the grid points. And if you have a 13-noded, similarly, you must define all 13 of them. The element coordinate system is used as the basic coordinate system. So to check if our capability works, we use some existing examples from our demo guides and our training manuals. In this case, we use one example from our Solution 400 demo guide. It's in Chapter 50. And the example has 2 plate elements, or 2 plates pressing on a rubber seal, which is made up of solid elements. Previously, we did not have any pyramid elements in this example, and in the new test, we added pyramid elements. On the figure on the right-hand side, you can see in the pink is where the pyramid elements were added, the transitioner elements. And when we run the example, the highly nonlinear example, we compare the results with the marked elements, and you can see that how the results overlap on top of each other. We ran some other examples. In this case, it's an exterior acoustics example. In this case, we have a plate which is an acoustic load is applied on that plate. The acoustic load is applied as a function of frequency, and then we have our infinite elements where external to the plate we check what the acoustic pressure is. In this case, the plate that we have has pyramid elements, and we compare it to our prior example where we did not have any pyramid elements, and once again, we see that the results almost overlap, so we're not really seeing any degradation in accuracy by using pyramid elements. Here's another example for rotordynamics with similar results where we see the results almost being the comparison being pretty similar. Performance testing, we wanted to make sure we're not sacrificing a lot of speed here. So we did for some of the models, we tested solution 101, 103, 111 with ACMS, Paradiso, and all the different solvers that we have inside of MSC Nastran. What we notice is in some cases we see a very slight degradation, about 5 to 10, 5%, less than 5%, but in most cases we don't see any performance degradation here compared to a model with no pyramid elements, obviously. Some of the guidelines and limitations, the first order linear pyramid element is excessively stiff sometimes, shows excessively stiff behavior for bending problems. However, we don't notice any drawback of shear locking, as normally they're just used as transition elements between the X's and X. The second order pyramid elements, which we have 13 nodes, they behave pretty well for bending and also do not exhibit any shear locking. We also support damping for pyramid elements as well, and 0 parts, the GE, GEIJ entries. Currently, we do not have our DigiMap product support with the map digi entry. We're working on supporting this in our pre-plus processor PASRAM, which we believe will be supported in version 2020. However, we're also working with friends in Beta CAE to support development in preprocessor ANSA for those that use the preprocessor. And then that should be supported in the next major release as well. Now I'll talk about another capability that we've added in MSC Nastran 2019 for assembly management. In 2018.0, we released the capability called modules. It's very similar to, for those that don't know what modules is, it's very similar to part super elements, the assembly management tool, but however, it does not do any reduction of the MHC. So all it does is you've got an assembly and different parts can be put inside different modules, as all the bulk data entries inside a module. So it just makes the assembly management a lot easier. In this release, we're introducing the capability of creating multiple instances of the primary module with simple keywords. So if you have a left wing, for example, in a module, and you want to have a right wing, which is identical, but a mirror image, you can just specify a primary module and ask it to create a mirror image at a location, and it will do so. The benefits is it reduces reliance on a preprocessor. So if you receive a bulk data file from another group or a supplier, you only need, if they're identical, you only need one of the bulk data files, and you can easily create mirrors or copies of the previous one without having to load the bulk data file in a preprocessor. Another advantage that we think is there's a number of FD codes out there that, for example, CANFlash is one from the ESI group that uses very similar definitions. So if you were to translate, if you were using, for example, MSC Nastran for an NDA run and then using CANFlash for a subsequent crash run, you could use the similar, it's very easy to translate the Nastran bulk data files for those simulations as well. The feature description, we have two interfaces here, not to confuse you, but the original interface is very similar to part super elements. So if you're a heavy user of part super elements, you may prefer that classic interface. It allows you to define the instantiated module inside MD bulk, and then it allows you to specify if you're copying it or repeating it or mirroring it, and relocate it to a different location using MD lock. Or if you're mirroring it, then you want to define a mirror plane. That's very similar, it's exactly similar to the SE bulk or SE lock, SE plane that you may have seen on the part super elements. However, we've also created an enhanced interface, which we believe is a little better, especially when you're doing a number of sequences of movement for the module. And that's, in this case, I'll explain that a little better in further slides, but we've added a number of new entries, MD move, MD tran, MD rotation 1, 2, and then MD mirror. Here's what the user interface looks like for MD bulk. You can define if it's a primary module or if you're defining a secondary module, which is a repeated or a mirror module. In the type, you can define if it's repeated or a mirror or move. and you can define all your sequences in there, and I'll show you an example in the next slide. Here's the MD move where we define the sequence of the movement. So here's an example. Module 10 is a primary module. Let's say I received that module from another group, and I want to create a module 20 which looks identical to it. However, it's located at a different spot than where module 10 is defined. In that case, I will define a module inside another module, inside another begin module entry. I will define an MD bulk with ID 20, and it's defined as a movement of module 10. And then inside of the MD move, we'll define all the sequence of events that will take place to locate this module 10 to another module location. And in this case, we've done MD row 2, which is we've rotated it along the coordinate system, and then we've translated it to a location. So rotate 90 degrees and translate it gives us module 20. Here's another example, a little more practical, even though these are academic problems only, but it works very well for real model types as well. In this case, module 20, which is internal to module 10, is shown on the left-hand side, and we add some movements to it, and we get a module 30, which is a copied module 20, and translate it to a mirrored to a different location. Some of the guidelines and limitations, all the MD log, MD plane, MD train entries, they can only define in module 0. That's the main bulk data section. A copied module would inherit all the bulk data entries from the primary module. So if you've got all the grid points and element points and data entries, they will all be copied into this new module, unless you use an exclude entry to exclude something. And also currently, if you have a primary module, we're only supporting instantiation to create an instance off that primary module. So we cannot create a secondary copied module and then create a copy of that secondary module. We recommend just using the primary module for yourself. Also, we're only supporting one module instantiation at a time, so we can't take a primary module and create 10 instances of it at a time. We only create one another instance. At this time, future, we could support additional events as well. Also, module within another module is not currently supported. That's something we're looking into for future releases. Now, I'll quickly talk about some of the enhancements that we made in Solution 700, which is our exclusive code. In Nastran 2018.2 version, we created a brand new Solution 700 primarily based on Dytran technology. So the structural and the fluid part, the Lagrangian and the ordinary solver, were all based on our Dytran, MSC Nastran technology. Some of the enhancements that were made in this release are for hydroplaning workflows. So we've added localized basic friction. I'll talk about that. We've also added a rubber material, especially used for tire type of material. So this is liquid elastic material, MATBE entry. We also introduced an automated coupling surfaces method, which automatically Nastran will figure out where your structural and fluid boundary is and create a coupling surface. And we've made some enhancements to that, which we'll talk about in further slides. And then we've added some minor enhancements to using airbag-related enhancements, and also including a human dummy model in your explicit simulations, typically used for crash simulations. And we've also added our user-defined subroutines, which a lot of the users use inside of Nastran. Other solution sequences, now we're supporting those for Solution 700 as well. So let's start with hydroplaning workflows. Here's where you have a tire model and you want to study the hydroplaning, so how the water or ice, snow may stick to the tires. In this case, originally we had collision friction, which is used to model that friction between the coupling surfaces. However, we've added the capability to define a localized collision friction, so you can select subsurfaces within any part, and you can define the collision friction in those locations only. So it enables simulating sticking of mud on specific parts of the tire, as shown on the slide. We've also added a viscoelastic material, which is generally used to model the rubber material for the tire. It's very similar to the MAT D076 entry in our old LSI-based polymer pattern. Here's an example of that capability. In this case, we have two wedges shown in sharp black wedges shown in the figure on the top. The blue area represents the air, and then the red is soil is represented by the red color. On the bottom, we can see on the left-hand side, we apply the cohesive friction. On the right-hand side, we don't. And you can see how the soil sticks to the wedge on the bottom right figure on there, and on the left wedge, we see the soil sticking on the right-hand side of the active. That's the So automated coupling surfaces, as I mentioned, we added that in version 2018.0. It's a user-friendly and an automated way to do fluid structure interaction simulations in Solution 700. Now we're supporting, we also support automated coupling for failure surfaces. So for example, if you're doing bird strike simulations where a bird model hits the structure and then the structure breaks, in that case, the bird model has to flow through the structure. Previously, you would have to do that in you'd have to define two coupling surfaces, but in this case, it's taken care of automatically. Also, we've added DMP support for the Eulerian mesh in automated coupling surfaces. So if you have a glass wave that you want to study, or any kind of Eulerian mesh for using coupling surfaces, you can distribute that over multiple nodes using DMP. So here's an example of the bird strike model. It's shown in this figure. We only need to define one Eulerian domain to model the bird, and then after it hits the structure, we'll see the structure fails, and the bird just flows through the bird model, just flows through the structure without having to define a second Eulerian domain. In this case, we're showing you some of the performance improvement that we get using DMP for ACS. And then we can see if we use a DMP of 4 setting, for example, we get up to 2x performance improvement. In this model, we have about 136,000 Eulerian nodes. Articulatorial body, it's heavily used in the industry to model dummies, occupancy dummies. So if you're doing airback simulations or crash simulations, you may want to include a dummy model in your model. The 3 things that we've added here are the 5 percentile female dummy, and the 5 percentile male, and the 95% heavy male. Going further with the airbag-related enhancements, we've added, from our Dytran technology, we've added an initial metric method, which models the pre-stressed airbag while it's folded inside the canister before it's deployed. Also, the fabric material itself, the mat fab entries used to define the woven airbag material. Again, more for airbag-related simulations. Finally, we've added user-defined subroutines in our Solution 700. This is going to be our SCA interface. All the entries that we support in the UDS are shown in the slide. It's used very similar to how, if you use UDS in other solution sequences, it's done very similar as well. Okay, next I'll talk about our HDF5 output format enhancements. We're continually adding anything that's missing in HDF5. HDF5 is our, going forward, OP2 and HDF5 are 2 output formats that we're going to heavily support. HDF5 is our preferred output format just for the ease of use and how easy it is to post-process everything using HDF5. Some of the solution sequences that were missing in the previous versions were Solution 144, 145, and 146, which are our aerodynamic solutions, aeroelastic solutions. Now we've added that in this release as well. So HDF5 supports everything in those 3 solution sequences. We've also added some of the other missing data blocks that we didn't support in the past. So for example, modules, everything in modules is now supported in HDF5 as well. and similarly the modal effective mask and the contact check feature that we added over the past 2 releases. We've added the output support for that in HDF5 as well. So this is what an HDF5 HDF reader looks like. It's called HDF View. It's an open source tool which you can use to load up an HDF5 file that is generated out of Nastran. You can look at the results very easily in a tabular fashion. Also, we can post-process that in any post-processor that reads HDF5. In this case, we use our MSC Nastran, which has the capability to post-process using HDF5. And here's the project that we did for outputting end loads and shear stresses in a panel. For example, the swing bodies have shell elements. We can post-process that in HDF5 as well. The contact check that Bhumi earlier spoke of, the new enhancements, we can also output those results in HDF5 and load up in a post-processor. And just show some more